My name is my name is Mary Quay, the Associate Commissioner of Market Regulation and Professional Licensing at the MIA. We set up this meeting to discuss potential regulations regarding provider network directories. Consumers rely on provider directories to select health plans and to find participating providers so that treatment will be covered as in-network. Directories are addressed in Section 15.112 of the insurance article and in some regulations and the No Surprises Act. The law offers alternatives, but requires procedures to review the provider directory for accuracy and to update the directory within specified timeframes. And the Federal No Surprises Act, which the MIA has the authority to enforce, also has provisions related to provider network directories. However, we continue to see news stories and reports of provider directory inaccuracies and ghost networks. The MIA is seeking comments on how to better enforce current law to improve accuracy of the directories, and we posted specific questions regarding the issues. With me today from the MIA, we have Jamie Sexton, the Associate Commissioner for External Affairs and Policy Initiatives, David Cooney, the Associate Commissioner for Life and Health, Eva Dugoff, Director of Mental Health Parity and Network Adequacy, Brianna Davidson-Jarrett, Assistant Attorney General, and Matt Weiss, the Manager of Health Policy Initiatives. I'm going to go over a few procedures we would like to follow today. When it is time for public comments, we will call first on members of the public who are registered to speak in advance. To the extent that time and technology permit, the MIA will hear from unregistered participants who access the Zoom webinar platform. You can communicate with us through the chat function. The MIA will continue to keep the record open until Wednesday, July 9th, for additional written comments. The video of today's meeting, as well as all written testimony submitted, will be posted on the MIA's website. To help ensure excellent sound quality throughout the meeting, we ask that you please stay on mute unless you are speaking. Also, anytime before speaking, if you could restate your name and organization clearly, that would be a great help. So thank you everyone who is here today. I believe that Matt Celentano was signed up to speak. So Craig, can we admit Matt? Okay, good morning, Matt. You should be able to speak.
Good morning, Mary and MIA team. This is Matt Celentano, the Executive Director of the League of Life and Health Insurers of Maryland, and I want to say thank you all for continuing this conversation. This is something that we've been talking about since prior to the pandemic, and I think that there was some progress that was starting to be made, and then the world sort of shut down. And I think that fundamentally, we're not in that much different of a place than we were then. Carriers continue to try to reach out and update their networks. And one thing that comes across, I hear over and over from every single carrier, is that we spend an enormous amount of effort trying to make sure that the directories are accurate. And they're using a variety of methods to contact providers, including fax machines still, text messages, emails, phone calls. And it is not uncommon for 10 phone calls to go unanswered from providers. This is the number one issue, is a lack of or it's unresponsive providers to be able to get us to the situation. We're also very aware that we don't want to just cut off providers because we can't get them to call us back, because we want to make sure that we have the most robust networks that are out there. So I think that I'm really happy we're having this conversation. There are, I think, some mechanisms that we could explore to ensure that everybody has skin in the game, to make sure that consumers have the best information possible. And we are really happy to be here and want to continue the conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And we would be happy to hear any ideas to address some of the problems with provider responses. I know that we have seen that, and we have seen concerns about providers burning out due to too many messages. And so we would love to be able to address that effectively if industry, as a result of their experience, has any insight into how to improve that.
Mary, do you want me to respond now or?
Not necessarily if you don't
Okay.
have remarks prepared, but
Yeah.
if that's something you can
Well,
address in written comments.
sure. Thank you, Mary. And I mean, I think that it's sort of a continuation of the conversation that we had before. And, there were a variety of approaches that carriers and some of the members of the Health and Government Operations Committee had been comfortable with, including trying to make sure that the boards were involved and trying to see if there are requirements around licensure to provide timely and accurate updates to the carriers in which there is a relationship established. Is there a way to do it through claims, in which you have sort of like a drop-down box, just like we do on Amazon, where you ensure that you have the most correct contact information before you proceed to the next step? Those are the kind of things that we've sort of brainstormed in the past, but would like to certainly explore further, especially as we continue to pivot towards more electronic communication in the future. But we will be happy to provide more input, and we are, once again, really happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for that. My recollection is that the No Surprises Act did place some requirements on providers. We, of course, do not regulate providers, and we've come up against that friction in some other laws. But we would be happy to hear if a change to the clean claims regs or something else along those lines would be helpful in mitigating this issue. Okay, do we have anyone else who would like to speak? We have 73 participants. So if you would like to raise your hand or put something in the chat, we are happy to hear various viewpoints. Okay, I see Trish Davies.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to say I'm really struggling with this as well. I can't use it, it seems I can't ever reliably use the directory on MHC to find providers. It is a time-consuming task to go and look at every possible available network to make sure my clients' providers are in network. And while I appreciate your addressing the provider directory issue, it extends further to checking to see if drugs are on the formulary. I have not been able to find extremely common, cheap, generic drugs. Repeatedly, I can't find them on the formularies as covered through MHC, and it has really confused and upset some of my clients. So yeah, I appreciate your efforts, but I feel like we as an industry need to see it actually working for a consistent period of time at this point. Like I don't feel like I can trust it until I see proof of concept for at least a couple months.
Thank you. We appreciate all perspectives. But we are focused on the provider directories today, but Improving the accuracy is what we're here to.
Yeah,
So,
no, obviously for
thank you.
both of them.
Is there anyone else who would like to share an opinion? Any thoughts, or experiences? And we have a comment in the chat. It's not clear who the speaker is, but thank you. I assume by when you say large entities, okay, thank you. You mean healthcare provider entities? Would you like to be, okay. Okay, are there other comments? Okay, well, we allotted time, so this is last call to speak up if people would like to talk.
We have another comment.
Okay, yeah. I am seeing comments in the chat, and we are happy to open the mic if you would like to discuss what you're seeing further.
Just raise your hand if you would like to speak.
Yeah, I am seeing something about a single point for providers to verify. I think that's something we have talked about. Okay,
Hi, Mary, can you hear me?
yes, we can. Thank you.
Hi, and I apologize to all, just these allergies, so I sound a little funny, so I apologize. It's probably better off that I was in chat. The two things that I had brought up is the rosters that, and I'm gonna speak to what I commonly see. I don't know about other carriers, but when we receive roster information from our larger delegated entities, um, throughout the state, it's actually throughout the country, right? There's outdated information within that data. We also see trends where with our larger entities, providers are setting providers to set up, to print at every location within the entity. We stay on top of that. That's red flags for us. If we see a provider associated to more than 5 locations, right? I think when you look at the rosters, it has a little bit to do to ensure that claims are paid for those providers that float around, provide coverage, right? But you can't have all those locations listed in the directory. I think the credentialing contact that submits the carriers, the large rosters, have the same issues we do. They're not validating every provider, every location for their entity monthly, quarterly. They're submitting the changes as they're being made aware of. I think it's an issue. The second thing I know, a few years ago, I think it was first quarter of 2023, time flies, it could be 2022, there was a certification date added to NPES where providers could go in and say, yep, here's where we're going to, certify my data is accurate. Where carriers could go to one place, grab the information. I think that lasted about a quarter. Some providers were going in, they were testing, we had an updated certification date, and then it just phased out. I think having a single point would reduce the provider abrasion from all the various carriers, making outreach calls, right? If we had a single place to go to. So those are just a couple of the things off the top of my head.
Thank you. I do recall prior discussions around having a single database. I think at the time it was spoken of CAQH perhaps as the database, but having a single database. So that is certainly something we can consider as part of this effort. Again, it will require some cooperation perhaps from sister agencies about how we would get providers to use it. Barry Major.
Hi. So thanks for doing this. This is great, a great forum. But I think in my experience, the issue isn't necessarily with the directory information itself. It's with the provider's ability or the staff's ability to recognize which payers they participate with and, are turning members away that maybe they shouldn't be. Just because really since COVID, staffs have turned over, a lot of staffs in my industry have turned over anyways. And we've got new people in the industry trying to do the best they can. And generally they're understaffed in terms of office staff, and they don't have time to take the calls. They don't have time they barely have time to schedule all the appointments. And so I think whether you have a single point of contact or not, the provider has to have some skin in the game to actually verify that information. I think we've been using a lot of claims data to verify. Obviously, if we receive a claim from a provider at an office, then that's proof that they're there. And so we utilize that as much as we can. But I think a single point, but to list all of the payers, I think is going to be difficult. But I think that might be kind of where the rubber hits the road, so to speak.
Thank you. I will note that one of the alternatives in our statute is that carriers can review providers who have not submitted claims in the last 6 months. We have not done a comprehensive survey of whether anyone has been doing that, but it is not something that we have observed being done. In the carriers we've looked at, we have generally seen that instead they have opted for the other choice under the statute regarding having their own procedures. And so looking at how well that has worked out and testing against claims is certainly something to think about. Okay, I see another hand raised.
Hi, Mary. It's Stephanie Waskowitz from Kaiser Permanente. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. One of our biggest struggles here is the 2-day turnaround and being able to validate the information that we're receiving from the providers to make sure that everything that they're providing is in fact accurate. Because to someone's point earlier, I think it was Barry's about the staff, you never know who's filling out the documentation to provide it to you. The other portion with that is making sure that if it's a provider who's adding a location, we still need to go do site visits and things like that for credentialing. And we're leery of putting something in the directory that we then may have to immediately pull out if for some reason the provider's office doesn't meet credentialing requirements or what have you. So we're kind of in a limbo there with that rapid turnaround. And then if you have any information, or if you're going to do regulations, if there could be some leeway for situations where we have to get credentialing done in order to, in good conscience, add somebody to a directory, because it gives us all the opportunity that we need to validate everything that we're being told, at least for the first time, and then at re-credentialing. So just something to consider. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do not off the top of my head know every detail of our credentialing statutes and adding things to directories there. Section 15112 has become a very lengthy law over the years. Okay, do we have anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, I am not seeing any additional hands up. I'm not seeing many more comments. So last call. Oh, someone, Rose McNeely.
Sorry, I just wanted to weigh in as a broker who is trying to provide excellent customer service to all of the people who are dealing with the portal. Just sort of on like a surface level, if we're even just the Medicaid side of things, if we're talking about expanding it to more carriers so we can do a broader search, that sounds awesome. But just the Medicaid side of things, like if I do a search centered in Frederick, where I'm located, it gives me Baltimore providers. As we're talking about trying to add providers, the basic functionality of the system has to be improved on a ground level first. Because I had an appointment this morning, which was why I was late logging on. I had to manually go check every MCO to try to locate a provider. We do that as a customer service and as a karma activity. It took 45 minutes. We would love to see something that functionally works on a baseline level before we even talk about expanding it. Because you know what? I get paid, quote unquote, to go do those searches for commercial carriers. Let's start on by fixing what we got first. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? In response to one of the comments, I believe the No Surprises Act currently has a provision where if a patient relies on an inaccurate provider directory, it needs to be covered as in-network. And I am told that carriers are relying on that at this point. At least some. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I don't see any other hands up. If no one no one is indicating in the chat that they would like to speak. And so I believe that we can close this, and written comments are welcome for the next 2 weeks until July 9th. So thank you everybody for attending today. We appreciate all the input. There is a lot to think about around this issue. So please feel free to send us additional written comments. Thank you.